Well, hello again. Welcome back to Retro Tech. I sat down, I tried to record today's video like 25 times and things keep happening. The last thing was this whole arm contraption that holds up my microphone just literally fell off the wall. So now I'm having to hold this by hand. Hopefully I can get this recording done because I've been trying hard to talk about today's episode. So first off, in the beginning half, we're going to look at a Sony KV24FV300. Now this is one of the Vega Trinitrons, and it's from the early 2000s. It's all analog. It features inputs from like composite video all the way up to component. Has a great picture. I'm going to talk about the really good things on this TV and also maybe some of the things that holds it back a little bit to give you a good overview of it. We're also going to dive deep into like the hardware here and look at the chassis, service it some, and we'll also go into the service menu because I want to show you a lot of the cool things you could do with this television if you do end up having one, or if you're even thinking about maybe picking one up that you see listed locally, or maybe someone wants to give you one or something like that. And after that, we're going to take a look at my setup here at the shop. Hopefully nothing else will fall apart before we do that. But what I want to do is I want to show you a lot of things I've changed here. I did go through about 4 months ago and do a full tour of how I had transform this place into the shop that you see normally in the background now. I'll show you some of the new things I have set up, get your opinion if there's anything you would like to see maybe more featured in a live show. Let me know in the comments when you're reviewing that half of the video, but either way the choice is yours. You can watch this whole video, or if you don't feel like getting too deep into the technical parts of this CRT, you can skip forward to the shop tour, which will be more laid back and a little more fun. Again, we're going to start with the Sony KV24FV300. It's a really cool CRT, and we're going to jump over into the shop next door and start to work on it here. Well, hey there, friends. We're going to jump right into things today with an actual Trinitron that is newer to me. This is the first time I've seen the insides of this model and worked on it. We've got some really grainy goodness going on the screen here for you. This is composite video, and it's an old VHS dub down here from this Emerson VHS player. VCR down there. It's being fed up here as a test. I'm initially testing this. Again, this is a Sony KV24FV300. It's from 2002, and we'll definitely get into some more details on it. It's the BA6 chassis, and a lot of people will look at the FV310, and from personal experience I could tell you that this has about maybe 1/3 the hardware of the FV310. There's a lot fewer boards inside of here than in that CRT, and we're just gonna take this apart in a second, and we're gonna service it, and just wanted you to get a good look at inside here. There's a look down at the CRT neck. We'll get closer once this is all turned off and discharged. And this is, of course, gonna have your Trinitron logo on the front up top here. This is a very flat screen design. Okay, and then if we look down here, we've got our SRS WOW audio. Companies like this love those acronyms. Got a video input here on the front. Menu adjustments up, down. Stereo headphone input, or out, excuse me. Volume up, down, channel up, down, and then your input cycler right here. And if we just look at the other input options besides obviously composite, there's RF right there next to composite, S video, and this one has component right there. All right. Now, I don't actually believe this will discharge. I think it already has discharged. And that's just simply because most Sonys from this time, well, pretty much every Sony from this time period has a built-in bleed resistor, but we'll just be safe and see. Let me see if I can flip this around and move it a little bit. There we go. Maybe I can even, you know, don't do this stuff if you don't know what you're doing, obviously. Let's see if I can get down in there. Let's see. I'm going to bring in my, whoops, sorry, I'm not going to edit any of this out, so I'm just going to bring that in here. Let's see. Nothing. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to push this together like that, and it will release. It's just a little spring there. Claw, it's keeping that in there. Touch that tube. The tube's the important part, but discharge both parts. There you go. Now it's easy, safe, and fine to move this entire set of boards out. Everything else that's connected in here is disconnected. Whoop, I say that and then that silly cable hangs itself on a button. Alright, now I can move this bundle of boards slowly out and take this over here into the lab area and start working on them. All right, we're going to get ready to roll here through some photographs of the restoration process. I'm going to stop on anything that I feel like is important so I can note it to you, and you can briefly look at it here, and then we're going to jump and looking back into the assembled CRT and run some tests. And so first off, just a quick look at this label. Again, this is the KV24FV300. It is a NTSC television, so it runs on 120 volts, 60 hertz. It's supposed to use about 180 watts max. It was made in April of 2002, and it is a BA6 chassis. And the only thing of importance to note about the BA6 chassis is there's no RGB mod currently available for this chassis. All right, let's look at the tube here real quick. This is the label on the side of the CRT itself. It's a Singapore Trinitron. The part number is A60LPN70X. All right, this grouping of photographs is from the Patreon members' restoration file. So every time I do a restoration job for somebody, I give them about 75 to 100 plus photographs of me working on their item. So as I work on this television and break it down and do all the service work to the boards, I will take photographs of that to give to the client. And this is the neck board or the CV board, the CRT socket boards. You can see right in the middle of your screen, there is the CRT socket where it plugs right into the back of the CRT. And if we look up here, you can tell I've already removed all the old capacitors on this board and I have cleaned it. There's all the capacitors that were documented and removed. Here we have the board with the replacement capacitors installed, quality control checked with that black mark right there from the Sharpie. And I've done that with every single capacitor on here. They've all been replaced on this board, installed, and there you go. If we look at the back, it's been cleaned. All the solder points have been reflowed on this board. This is just going to add to the durability and make sure that it really doesn't have any failures anytime soon. The heat will especially build up on points on the back of this board, especially in the areas down here. Anywhere that there's a IC or transistor, anywhere that there is one of the higher end, here's a transistor right here, this IC or this IC right here, and then the resistors right there. Anything going into the neck board and into the CRT, that's prone to break down, folks, at this CRT socket. So it's a good job to get in here and reflow solder and then clean up and make sure everything looks good. All right, now we're going to move on to the main board. You don't recap the entire board on a TV this new. You're just going to get in here and basically check through each capacitor, remove any that are in high heat zones that are prone to possibly be breaking down in the future, because none of them have officially broken down yet. This is still a newer television, and this is more preventative maintenance. Overall, these are all the capacitors that I removed. Every single one of them, well, almost every one of them was in the power supply or the deflection block. So you're getting a fresh set of capacitors in the high heat and high use areas. Now, I'll check for the solder to kind of start looking dodgy. There's some places where it looks bad on these boards after 25 years. So it's always good to go through and spot in new fresh solder over top of that when you're welding in your fresh capacitors. Okay, here's the board. It's all been finished up. Again, I'll document all the solder that's been reflowed and cleaned up, reinstalled, and we're ready for the tests. So now we're going to switch back over because the TV's over there in the shop. It's all reassembled and we're ready to test it. So let's go now and see what the results are of this restoration. This board has a service menu, so all the adjustments are actually done inside the set through a service menu. There is one switch here for most likely horizontal centerness, and then that's pretty much it inside of here. The only other things you can do manually are you do have controls over your focus and your G2 voltage over here. This does have convergence controls here on this yoke. You see those potentiometers down in there. And then there's one right here for horizontal static convergence. And then you can adjust yoke rings for convergence again and purity. Now this one does have velocity modulation. That's what this additional coil is here with the mini yoke windings. See how it kind of looks like a baby yoke? Still got copper in here. Well, over here you've got the same mini yoke, I guess, right? So that one is plugged in from there into the neck board over here where it says on it VM for velocity modulation. That's where it's connected to. All right, enough chit chat about this thing. I think you've seen enough. Let's get it fired up. All right, everybody, here it is. The amazing Super Metroid screen on this television. I've been letting it run for a while after the restoration. And let me turn the volume down here. And we're going to talk about this TV set just a little bit. We'll let it run here. I'm using component video as I let it warm up. And I mean, it's got a great image. Super, super sharp and detailed. You even get like a scan line effect on this TV, right? See that? Without having to jump into RGB. You can do it here in just component video. You're going to get some scan line effect. Anyway, I did want to mention a special thing about this TV. Let me turn the lights on. We'll go around the back of the screen. So this is the chassis again, the BA6 chassis. And the funny thing about this chassis and design is it's the same chassis and design as the Sony KV FS120. And that's a CRT that I featured, about a year ago. I'll pin a tag up here if you want to check out that video on that specific television. But there were some interesting things about that TV. One important note is that chassis is not RGB moddable, but thankfully it has plenty good inputs naturally on its own. Now another thing about that chassis is if you get real close in here and you look at your image, occasionally you may see a little flicker on the screen. And we talked about this in the FS120 episode, that screen flicker, it's just unfortunately a byproduct of this tube setup and this whole design of this television. You can't, I mean, most people cannot see it unless you're one of those crazy people that just sits around and like gets real close and doesn't actually play the game. You're just going to sit here and stare at this till you see like almost a shimmer every once in a while. It's not, again, it's not hugely noticeable. It's less pronounced, I feel like, on this FV300 than it was on our FS120 version of the KV. So it's just something that happens on these Vega sets sometimes. What I want to do now is I'm going to show you that you can get in and access the service menu on this with pretty much any Sony remote, and we're going to do that next and look at some adjustments. We're going to jump into the service menu here, and today I'm actually using not even a Trinitron remote. This is a Bravia remote, so you can use just about any Sony remote that will work with the television just by testing it with power. So right now it's powered off in standby mode, just meaning that it's plugged in but there's no power going into it, having it turned on, and that's the mode it needs to be in. And then it's display 5, volume up, and power, I believe. And let's see if I got it right. Great, I did. So this is everything up here. You see all these new characters have appeared. This means we are in our service menu, and let's see how we navigate through here. So we can change our values up and down on whatever setting we are by using 3 and 6, up, or 1 and 4, cycle through our settings. Right now we're in deflection, which is good. Tells us what we're in. And then I believe it's muting. So you press muting. Muting will turn that red, and then you can press enter, and it will save the settings changes. If you don't do that and you just power the set off, you'll lose your settings. Now, once you've made your changes, if you can't get out of this mode, just power the CRT off and you'll be out of the mode. I'm not going to go through every single set here. I would recommend that if you are going to adjust this TV set, you would take a look at the actual service menu for this TV. It'll tell you the exact same process that I just told you to get into the service menu, but also there will be a guide on there on how many different settings there are, because there are pages of settings in this TV, and what the standard setting is, and you can go through there, check those settings, see what you want to try to adjust, and do it that way. But that is how you get into the service menu and how you save any edits. What can be really said about this Sony Trinitron in closing? I really don't know, so I'll just leave you with a song. You're so beautiful, your scan lines are exquisite, your light gleams through the glass. Yes, oh yes, the flat looking glass of the Trinitron, the Vega Trinitron, oh yeah. I just love your scanitrons when you tickle me with your Trinitron. Hey, oh, did I mention that light guns work on this Trinitron? Oh, baby, won't you get a Trinitron too? All right, so this turned out to be a pretty lengthy deep dive into the Sony KV FV300 television, and I've kind of gone over my time limit for this episode, so I'm going to save the shop tour for maybe a future episode dedicated solely to the shop, instead of trying to tack it on to the end of this one and making this one just too long to sit through. I appreciate your time today. Look, if you have any interest in getting a CRT serviced, please do check out the Patreon account linked in the description of this video. That is how anybody ever gets their CRT worked on in this shop by me, is through that Patreon, and you are welcome to check that out, especially if you're here in the United States and don't mind shipping your CRT to my shop, which is located in Virginia. And again, if you want to find more information about that, or if you just want to support the show, please check out the Patreon below. You can also send me a DM that way if you need any questions answered or have anything that you'd like to get talked about on a CRT related issue. Anyway, thank you again for hanging out. I'll see you guys in the next one. I've got plenty more CRTs already filmed and ready to go for you, deep dives and much more. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time with some more retro content.